episode. So today I have Jasmine with us. She graduated from Towson University in 2019, and she had a dual major in early childhood education and special education. Welcome, Jasmine.
Thanks. Hi, Amen.
Hey. So Jasmine is going to start off by telling us a little bit about her program, her experience in the early childhood education and special education dual program at Towson University. And then later on, we'll talk a little bit about her internship experience, her job, and many other things. So you can get started, Jasmine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. So, hi everybody. So I graduated from Towson University. Actually, before Towson University, I started at the community college. So I took pretty much all my electives in the community college before I transferred to Towson University. And so when I got to Towson University, before I could get into my program, I had to pass my praxis. So praxis one that includes math, math, reading, and writing. So you just have to pass that in order to get into the program. So that's one of the requirements. And also they needed also like a transcript from my community college. So when I transferred to Towson University, I just had to take two more, and then I got into the program. So that's like just like the backstory of my transfer experience. But in Towson University, I spent 2 years, so like 4 semesters in my program. And in my first semester, it was pretty much just my electives. I started my internship in the second semester in Towson. So that's when I started. So like my internship, they kind of split it, and they kind of split it and within our track. So we would have first, you would have 2 day internship, or you would start. I'm sorry, you would start with 1 day internship, then you would start with 2 days, and then until you have like the full time internship, like you're going to the school 5 days.
Got it. Well, in the first semester, you said for your first semester you had to take, you mostly took electives. So what kind of electives did you take? And did the school tell you exactly what electives to take, or did you have more, it was kind of your own option? So what kind of electives did you take?
Good question. So two of them was required from the program. So it was an ethics course and an educational diversity course. So those were the two courses that I have to take before they could accept me into the program.
Okay.
But because of financial aid and like all that stuff, I have to be a full-time student. So for the other two courses, that was just extra that I took. So that was like my personal choice. But I still tried to register for a course that is related to education. So I ended up taking a service learning course. So that service learning course is you go into classes, your regular classes, and then you do a service learning into one of Towson's I'm not sure like program I think, but
Hmm.
it's service learning. You put 20 hours of working with adults with autism,
All
and
right.
then you kind of you're kind of like a student mentor to those um I don't I'm not gonna I don't want to say that they're students, but they're participants of their program, and then
Hmm.
we serve as their mentors.
Got it.
So yes, that's like the nature of the course. But yeah, so those were like the two electives, and the other two were just like whatever I picked.
Got it. So in your first semester, you just took four classes, and those four were electives.
Yes.
Got it. Awesome. So yeah, you said your second semester you were you started an internship.
Yes, that's when I started the internship, and that was like the 1 day, and then the next semester you do the 2 days, and then the semester after that you do your full 5 days.
Got it. And is the internship required in the second semester? So you just did an internship, or did you have other classes that you took as well?
So it was, yes, like internship and classes. So like once you get into the program, every semester you would have an internship
Ooh, okay.
combined with your classes. So I'm pretty sure I was on full load on like junior and senior year because of the internship, because that adds up to the credits, and also like the coursework, because like if you have internship, you also have a class to go with that too. So it's like
Yeah.
four classes on top of, so four classes and then your internship and then the class that goes with the internship, if that makes sense.
Wow. No, that makes sense. So the four classes, they were four education classes and they were like the core classes. So you didn't
Yes.
have an option not to take it. Or could you say like instead of taking these four classes this semester, can I take one of these classes another semester and lighten my load and just take three? Or was that just not an option?
No, because once you get into the program, there's a core sequence that the department would give you. So
Ooh,
like
got it.
your classes, your courses are predetermined. So like once you get into the program, you have a cohort.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like what you follow, and like whoever you started with in your junior year is pretty much who you're gonna be with until like you graduate, if you're in the
Okay.
cohort.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so that's basically how it went from it was 4 semesters, right?
Yes, 4 semesters.
And you just had to stick with the plan,
Hmm.
with the plan, the whole sequence that the department gave you, and you have nothing to worry about.
Yes, pretty much. I mean, in my case, yes. But, sometimes it could get a little tricky because of the praxis tests and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Because sometimes the department, so don't quote me on this,
Okay.
but sometimes if you don't pass the praxis, but you already like satisfied the rest of the requirements, they would, I think, give you like a semester to pass your praxis, and they would still let you in the program. But let's say the semester is over and you still haven't passed your praxis. I think that's when that's when like something might change, or yeah, like like there has to be like a conversation that has to happen there, because
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about your internships, but before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about the praxis.
Hmm.
So, what semester do you have to take the praxis in? Must you take it when you're junior or when you're senior, or anything you have to say about the praxis in general? Your experience taking it in this program at Towson.
So what I did for my praxis too, which is like your basically the process that you have to take in order to get your teaching certificate. I did that during my last semester. So the
Okay.
semester that I was doing my full-time internship, because oh, I meant to say this. So on your last, like very last semester,
Mm-hmm.
it will be just one class and then your internship, because you're in school 5 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
and then you attend your seminar class, and that's once a week.
Wow.
So
Okay.
um I took my praxis the summer before I started my, so I kind of I tried to like split, I mean not split. I tried to like space out the times that I took the praxis. I didn't take it all at one time, because since I'm a dual major, I had to take four praxis, and I can't afford taking it all at one time. So how I did it is like I took two in the summer, like the summer before I started senior year, and then I took the other two while I was doing my full-time internship.
So what were these four praxis? Did you take four of them because there's four different subjects or four different exams, or how does that work?
So yes and no. Okay, so it depends on your program. So for me, since I'm a dual major, so my early childhood, I have to pass. So for my early childhood major, I have to pass the early childhood test subject, wait, no, early childhood content and curriculum. I can't remember the name. I'm sorry.
Something like that. It sounds like something to me. So.
Yes, and then the other one is your principles of learning and teaching.
Okay.
So that's your two, and then for special ed, that's one. So that's for my special ed, and then the fourth one. This is like a new test that all teachers have to pass. I think they just started it last year. So like I'm pretty sure our class was the graduating class that I was in. Like we were the first batch of pre-service teachers that had to pass that praxis. So it's called the Teaching Reading Elementary Education.
All
So
right.
so for that one, every education major has to pass that Teaching Reading Elementary Education. I
Okay.
mean, okay, I'm sorry, not every education major, but there are certain majors that has to take that. So I feel like if you're working with grades, elementary grades, I think that's something that you would have to pass.
Okay, and you say that praxis is new and your class was the first one to take it. Is it new for the state that you're in, or is it new for your university, or new for teachers in general?
I believe it's the state because I think they passed a new act, and then it required like to say that the teachers are highly effective.
Mm-hmm.
You have to pass this praxis to know that the teachers knows how to teach reading to students.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Wow. Okay. Well, that's very helpful. Thanks for walking us through your semester sequence there. So yes, you mentioned that in your second semester you're going to be in some internship classes almost immediately. So yeah, can you talk a little bit about your internship experience? You can talk about the things that you enjoyed most about your experience, if it was helpful, what you learned, whatever you want to mention about the internship experience that you want fellow teachers to know.
Okay. Okay. So for the first semester that I was interning,
Uh-huh.
okay, this is confusing. Okay, so the first semester, but they're really not my first semester. First semester that I was interning is my one day. That's my early childhood rotation. So
Okay.
since I'm a dual major, like I would have to do early childhood internship and then a special ed internship. So
Wow.
for that first one, it was my early childhood. But the tricky part is I was technically in a special ed classroom. It was in kindergarten, but it was self-contained. So that technically was still kind of like a special ed rotation.
Mm-hmm.
So for that one, um, I worked at a kindergarten classroom. It was self-contained, so it was the class was all students with IEPs.
Mm-hmm.
So that that was as far as my experience, since it was only one day,
Mm-hmm.
um, pretty much what I did is just to plan lessons, teach the lessons, and then I also helped in preparing materials for the students. Um, so like every day that I'm there, I make sure that well, not make sure, but there's always one instructional block. So it's either like morning meeting, calendar, or like like a math lesson or reading or a small group that would have to teach that day. It was kind of tricky because since you're only there one day, so like there's really like there's only so much you could do.
All right.
And but again, like that was a really great experience. I had a really great mentor. I really He was very helpful. He would walk me through everything, and he would also talk about. He would always keep me posted with like what's happening with the students, and I appreciate that so much because it makes me it makes me feel, that I'm one of the teachers in that classroom because I know what's going on with my students, even though I'm only there one day a week. So yeah, and for that, I have to do just like formal evaluations with my mentor, but that's just like him giving me feedback of like what I could work on and stuff, and like what resources that I could use to teach my students, and what do you think I could like what I think would be more helpful in the next lesson. So yeah, it was just more of like um, observations and teaching lessons and stuff. And then the next semester comes, my 2-day internship. I did Oh, I actually also did an internship with infants and toddlers. So
Okay.
that's another program that our school district has. So what that program does, it's designed for kids 0 to 5 that qualifies for an IFSB, that's like individual family and services plan. So
Hmm.
that's also like a part of um yeah, it's like one of the services that our school district offers. So what we do there is like we go to homes to provide services, and that was also like one day a week. So that's another exposure to another special ed program in our school district. And but that is very different because you're not in a schoolhouse. Like
Right.
you go to houses, and that's how you deliver the services.
So
But
when
you
you go to the houses, you're practicing reading you're basically teaching the students.
Yes, but I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say teaching because, they're very little.
Hmm.
So it's more of like, well, like, based on my experience, like my mentor, we worked with like social emotional goals, or like early childhood goals, like, if um the student, if there's concerns about um like if they're not meeting their developmental milestones.
Hmm.
So that's like kind of what we target, and it's not only special educators. In infants and toddlers, you get also like physical therapy services, OT, speech, and then and then like the special ed teachers. So it's like there's a whole team of service providers that um, provide like deliver services to the families, and just depending on what the students' goal are.
Wow, that's
And
awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
So we're on your second internship, right?
Yes,
And this is your third semester.
I think so. It feels so long ago, so I can't remember. I think
Okay.
so.
But we did the 1-day internship, and this one, the infants and family one that you just talked about, that's a 2-day internship.
Yes,
You don't
yes,
remember? Well, that's okay.
I think it's 2 days. Yes,
Okay. All right. So now we're on the next internship.
yes. And then the next internship is wait, maybe I'm mixing this up. So I think
Okay.
infants and toddlers was 1 day,
Uh-huh.
and then the next internship was 2 days.
Got it. And that one was in the school.
Yeah. So now this one is the school. So
All
I'm
right.
so sorry, I can't remember because I just had a lot of internships and they're kind of
Hmm.
like mushed in my head. Okay.
No, that's
So,
fine.
which is a pretty good thing because you get all these internship experience. You get a lot of you get exposed to a lot of things.
Hmm.
So it really prepares you once you get into your um teaching career. So, um so for the 2 days, now I'm in the schoolhouse again. Um I was placed in a special ed inclusion position. No, I was assigned with a mentor who works in a special ed inclusion position.
Got it.
So what
When you
that means,
say, sorry, when you say mentor, you mean a teacher, right? That refers
yeah, the
to a,
teacher, yeah,
okay, got it.
yeah. So they're yeah. So like all my mentors are like teachers in the schoolhouse. So yeah, my teacher mentor is a special ed inclusion teacher. So what that means, if like for anybody who is not familiar with that, so special ed inclusion is you still work with students with IEPs, but those students are um, placed in a general education setting. So that means they're learning with their peers in the classroom. So they're not in like a special program.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the whole inclusion position. So that was my 2-day internship. So that's more of like on the special education side. So in that 2 days, now I'm getting more responsibilities.
Okay.
So now you're teaching lessons. I mean, you're planning lessons. Um, you're taking over more of the teaching, and it was so like for my 2 days, it was kind of also staggered. So like let's say for the first 2 weeks, I'm just shadowing my mentor, and then like let's say the next and like 2 weeks after that, you would be pulling like just one group, excuse me, and then like let's say like another week, you would be pulling like all her groups, and then like I mean, as you go throughout the semester, you just kind of like get more responsibilities, and then by the time that you're at like I think sixth, maybe fifth or sixth week, I'm doing
Hmm.
all the planning, I'm doing all the teaching, and I've taken over all the small groups of my mentor.
Wow. Did you feel prepared to take over that much at, 5 or 6 weeks into the semester? Did the other internships prepare you for that, or you had some guidance for it?
I mean, I had guidance, and like I mean, my mentor was still there like all the time.
Right.
It's just me like really like we're just like kind of switching roles. So now she's kind of like the supporting teacher, but now I'm playing as like the lead teacher. So like she still helps me whenever I take the lead, but yeah, I mean, with your question, if I feel prepared, um I think yes and no. Yes, because I mean, they kind of build up that, they kind of build you up to that time like that you're going to be taking over.
Hmm.
And no, because, this stuff could kind of be overwhelming if with like all the planning and stuff like when you take over everything. But I feel like there's really no way to be prepared unless like you actually like do it. If
Exactly.
if that makes sense. But yeah, I guess like you don't. I mean, it's hard to say that you're prepared with it. I mean, you're prepared about it. It's just you just go right into it and then just do your best. And
Yeah.
then if you need help, then your mentor is there. Like they're not gonna slap your wrist like, oh, you're doing this wrong. You're doing like you're supposed to be doing this like and all that stuff. Like no,
Right.
they're still behind you. And yeah, and actually, I want to say this. So, like when you are an internship, make as many mistakes as you can because this is like the perfect time to make those mistakes and learn from it. Because
Yeah.
I think like like you're an intern. I mean, it's kind of like an excuse to make mistakes. I mean, but you're learning, so don't
Right.
afraid to make those mistakes. Because I was in that position. Like I was so scared to do like I was so scared that I'm doing everything wrong, or if I'm not teaching my lessons well. I mean, nobody's perfect at the beginning. Like you always start from zero or something, and it's there. Like your mentors are not there to pinpoint what you're lacking. It's more of them like trying to make you realize like, oh, this is something that you could work at and what your potentials are. And also like, try to highlight your strengths too, because I think that's very important. that you celebrate to your success and whenever you teach, because teaching could be a little stressful too. So like just make sure that you also celebrate your strengths and everything that you're learning so far during your internship experience.
For sure. That's awesome. In addition to feeling free to make mistakes and learn from them, it's also important for people to ask any questions they have, right?
Yes, yes. Mentors love questions because it shows that you care. Because,
Yeah,
if you're just coming in there, just, trying to wing it and just there to show up and not be prepared, and then, that's where the problem starts.
right.
So, yes, ask questions, you
Make
know,
make make mistakes.
I mean, don't be afraid to make mistakes
Yeah,
because sometimes it will really hold you back if you're so scared to make a mistake. Like it would limit the opportunities that would come your way. So yeah, just like be brave to yeah, like don't be afraid to fail because you're gonna have a lot of those.
yes. You'll learn from it at the end.
Yes.
All right, awesome. Do you have one last internship experience or did we cover them all?
I have another.
Okay, yes.
So
Tell
this
us
is
about
my
the last one really quick.
this is my 5-day internship.
Wow.
So this is like all 5 days. So my semester was split again. So for 5 weeks, so, no, for 6 weeks, I was in a special ed inclusion rotation again, but that was just 6 weeks.
Right.
And then after that, I'm in my early childhood rotation, which is I was placed in a kindergarten classroom for 10 weeks.
Hmm.
So the early childhood was a little longer than the special ed because I already had the special ed in my 2 days.
Right.
That makes sense. So for that, it's the same responsibilities. You get to teach all the instructional blocks. You plan the lessons. Um, Also, like you get. Oh, actually, I forgot to say that. Like you also get to do like case studies, projects that relates to collecting data, um, like for the special ed you get to write a behavioral intervention plan, an FBA, which is like a functional behavioral assessment. Like you get all these projects that you have to complete in every time that you go into an internship. And that would
Wow.
always yeah, it's always like related to what you're doing in the classroom. So like for example, in my early childhood rotation, we were doing an evidence of student learning. So just to give you like an overview of that. So for that project, we had to teach like a whole unit, and then for that whole unit, I had to gather baseline assessments, so like the pre-assessments and then post-assessments, and then for every lesson in that unit, I had to write a lesson plan and then like make a report of how my all my students did, and then at the end, you would talk about like all your data and how do you think your students what are the learning outcomes of your unit.
Yeah.
So like from the title, like evidence of student learning. So like you would talk about your data and how and not you would talk about your data and also like how your lesson reached the students in some way too. So like yeah, just like a lot of data and a lot of teaching in that and then you get to write your paper about that too.
Wow. That is awesome. It sounds like you had many valuable internship experiences, and having all this experience has prepared you for a job. So right now you are working at an elementary school, right?
Yes.
All right. So Jasmine's working at an elementary school. So She's going to talk a little bit about the hiring process and how you came about to get this job and, how the interview went, maybe some of the questions that you should be prepared to answer.
Mhm.
So, yeah, about your hiring process.
Yeah, so for the first step, I had to attend a teacher fair. So in that teacher fair, it was organized by Towson University. So all the counties and yeah, all the counties in the state of Maryland was there to interview like all the pre-service teachers that attended the fair. So like all the HR officers from each county was there to conduct interviews. So that was my first step. So I had to pass that interview, and so first you just have to submit your application online, and then they would pull up your resume and stuff, and then you would go into the interview. And for me, I interviewed with a principal. So in that fair, you could be either interviewed by a principal or an HR officer. But for me, I was interviewed with a principal. And then when you pass that interview, you get you'll be placed into a teacher candidate pool, and then the principals who are looking for new teachers will look in that pool and then would contact you if they are interested in interviewing you. And then
Mhm.
if a principal contacts you, you would have your school-based interview. So like the first one is just kind of like you know, just to get into the pool kind of interview. That's your
Right.
first step. And then are you gonna say something? Are you gonna say something?
Yeah. For that first interview, for the teacher fair, was that just specific to Towson? Or do you know if they have that at other universities, or that's just an opportunity you saw at Towson and just took that?
I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure Towson University organized that.
Got
So
it.
yeah, they just like contacted like HR officers from all the counties
Yeah. And
and
I mean, I'm pretty sure other universities and colleges they have their own career fairs, different things they do
mhm.
in their departments. So people be aware of that and ask your school what career fairs opportunities that they have. So the internship that you had with I mean not the internship, the interview that you had with the principal, was that at the fair or like at the
Yeah.
fair did you walk around to tables and hand out um your resume, or how did that work at the fair? Like, how do you conduct yourself at a fair like that to get one of those interviews?
Yeah, so like what I said, like if you submitted your application, then they would have a list of like, oh, these you would have to sign up for a time. So like you submit your application, and then when they said like, oh, your application is accepted, blah 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 blah, um, you would sign up for a time, and then you would come in at that time, and then once you sign in into like their table, they would tell you like which table you'll be going to.
Got it.
So you won't know who you're going to be interviewing with or like what like where you're going to be going until you sign in at like the teacher fair table.
Oh, okay. So
That
you
makes
have you have to submit an application before the fair.
yes.
Oh, got it. And on that application, do you like choose where you want to go to teach or
So you apply in the county that you want to.
got it? And then
Yeah.
they'll assign you from there.
Yeah, so like if you're trying to apply in like multiple counties, then you would have to fill out a separate application for each county. And you would have to register for a different time for each county too. So yeah, I'm just like trying to refresh my memory because like it's like a year ago, and like there was a lot going on in that fair too. So
Yeah, it's been a while. All right. So you got interviewed. They picked you from the pool of teacher candidates. You came to the school for the school-based interview, I think you said it was called.
yeah, like that's your school-based interview is like the principal of that school would interview you, and
Got
that
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So how did that go and what did you do after that?
So first, I was contacted by yeah, I mean a school, and then I had an interview with them. but due to like some personal reasons, I denied the offer. And then another, I think a week or two, another school contacted me and then asked me if I'm interested. But it was a split assignment, so I'm gonna be split between two schools. So I mean, at that time, I was like, I mean, I don't think it would matter. Like, I don't think like that would really be like a deal breaker if I get accepted and if I would be interested in it. So I was
Mhm.
like, okay, I'll just give this a try. And then I got into the interview. Yeah, I counted the day of the interview, and then I had the interview. I was interviewing with the principal and the assistant principal. So since it's two schools, they were like four people in there. So like two principals and two assistant principals. I can't talk. Assistant assistant principals. So
Yeah,
there's like four people interviewing me, which was kind of nerve wracking because like
that's intimidating.
yeah, so it was like four people and it was virtual too. So
Oh,
yeah, it was like a virtual interview. And yeah, and I think from the top of my head, I think they asked five or six questions,
okay.
or maybe seven. I can't remember. But yeah, it was like, and then they asked me like, they asked me about my experience. They asked me like what areas that like my areas of strength and weaknesses.
Mhm.
They asked me about hmm. Oh, I think there was like one question that I could remember when they asked me like, how do you make your classroom an inviting space for the students?
Oh, wow.
So that was a question too. And I mean, you get like a variety of questions. I think you
Mhm.
just really have to be ready. Just know, like, just be ready to talk about how's your classroom management, what is your philosophy of education. Um, Also, be ready to talk about how you're planning to manage behaviors in the classroom.
Yeah.
Um, Again, like classroom management. If you're familiar with the curriculum, or you're like me, applying for a special ed position. Also, like talk about like what's your experience in writing an IEP, which is like
Mhm.
the individual educational program. What's your experience in that? And also, like they talked about how how do you manage your time with all the responsibilities that you have, like what's your time management skills, and like how do you keep up with everything that you need to do. So it's like
Oh,
there's
wow.
really a mix of things that that your admin might ask you. So just be ready
Right.
to talk about those.
Just got to be prepared. But it sounds like you were well prepared, especially with all of those internships that Towson has to get you in the classroom on the job experiencing everything in real time with the students, with the teachers. That's all awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah, sounds like your interview went well. They
Mm-hmm.
liked you. They ended up hiring you.
Yes.
So when they hire people, do they normally have a contract? Is it a year, 2 years, 3 years, or how does that work?
So okay, so when you accept a job, they would direct you to your HR officer, and then the HR officer would walk you through like all that stuff about the contract. So for the teacher contract, it's like a year, well, technically 10 months
Mhm.
that you sign with them. And I'm not sure about, like the other districts contracts and stuff, but as far as like an art contract, it's 10 months that you have to stay with the county. That it says there that I'm not sure if I could talk about this, but yeah, it's just you have a teacher contract, you sign that, make sure you read that. Yeah, read it carefully, make sure you know and understand what you're signing. And if you have any questions, make sure you contact your HR officer before you sign. I mean, there's no rush in that. They
Right?
would, they would expect you to actually read over it. And, if you have any questions, you should always reach out to your HR officer, and also like understand what your benefits are. I think they should, well, for my case, I had access to like the whole packet that explains my benefits, like the pension, medical insurance, dental, and all that like great stuff
Yeah.
um, that they would offer you with the employment. And also make sure you also understand like what are like the before that, also you have to pass the fingerprint background check. So I
Hmm.
had to do
Yep.
that first. So the fingerprint, all that background check, and then when you pass that, that's when the ball starts rolling. You get all these information, all the things that you have to sign, and that's when you get your contract, and then you go from there.
Hmm. So if someone gets this contract and they're hesitant, they're like, I think I want to sign for 10 months. I'm not sure if I want to sign for 10 months. What would you advise for them? Do they have temporary positions that people can try out before they sign up for 10 months? Or, yeah, what would you tell someone if they were hesitant about signing for 10 months and being locked into the system for 10 months?
Yeah, if you're not ready to commit to a teacher contract, you can always do long-term subbing. But for that, I'm not sure if there's like a contract because
Hmm.
I've never tried long-term subbing. I'm not sure if you have a contract to sign, but I think for long-term subbing, from the word itself, long-term, you're subbing for like a teacher for, a certain amount of time.
Right.
And, that gives, that, you kind of get to test the waters of like, how is it being in the classroom? What are the teacher responsibilities? It just gives you like all the things that you get to do when you're in the classroom. You just don't have that, I guess like that 10-month commitment, but
Right.
you get like the whole feel for that. So yes, I strongly suggest that if you're not fully ready to commit to a teacher contract, by all means find something that could be a little that could be temporary, like again like the long-term subbing, or even if it's not long-term, you could do like just regular subbing. There's always a need for subs. So I'm pretty sure you would get a lot of opportunities to sub too.
Awesome. So there you have it. Do not rush into a teaching contract. It is 10 months that you have to sign for that. There's probably consequences as there are with any contract if you
Yes.
opt out of it early. Right? So yeah, be sure about that, and if you don't want to do it, be a long-term sub or be some type of sub. All
Yeah.
right. So Jasmine, you are teaching right now. You started teaching during the pandemic, so everything has been
Yes.
online. You
Mm-hmm.
haven't really been in a classroom with the students or teachers, or this new job that you got, you haven't really gotten to meet everybody in person formally and do any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what has your experience been like during this pandemic? I've been hearing some crazy stories that teachers are going through with this pandemic, try to figure out the students, figure out their resources, figure out their parents, and there's a lot going on. So, what has your experience been teaching in this pandemic? And I think that we have a question here as well. Someone said, "Are there any resources available for new teachers um, during this pandemic?" So, yeah, Jasmine, tell us a little bit about your experience teaching in this pandemic right now.
Sure. So that is actually like a really good question. So the resources. So these resources that I'm going to be talking about, like these are not only resources that are offered because there's a pandemic. Like these are actually resources that are offered to first year teachers.
Okay.
And yeah, so for like as a first year teacher, you get a consulting teacher. So like a consulting teacher means like she's kind of a mentor too. Um, that person would kind of be like a mentor too. So for example, um, she would support you. I'm using she because my consulting teacher is a woman. So I'm just gonna speak from my own experience. So she would support me, and I mean she would give me supports in lesson planning, anything for case management. Um, so also like lesson planning, like resources, like navigating, like and locating resources. Also, if I need to do like she also does like observations with me, so like she would watch me teach, and then after that we would have a meeting, like a reflection meeting about like how do you think you did, or like what do you think you could improve upon.
Yeah.
So like basically, so that consulting teacher is there to support you for anything that you need. And then when I say anything, it really is anything. I mean, they won't necessarily do your job for you,
Right.
but they would support you in anything that you would need, or or any responsibility that you're doing during your whole first year of teaching.
All right. So ask questions, ask for help from this person. You need direction. Go to your consultant teacher that you get for the whole year.
Yes, and they would
Awesome.
so for that they would also evaluate you by the end of the year. So they would do like a mid-year eval and then a final year eval. And that's only so the final year eval is to identify like, if this teacher is ready to move on to her second year of teaching without a consulting teacher, or if the consulting teacher thinks that that teacher needs another year to have a consulting teacher,
Right.
then that I think that's the purpose. I mean, that's one of the purposes of like I think the evaluation. It's
Yeah.
just to make sure that you know that you're ready once you start your second year of teaching.
Yeah.
And then another resource during this pandemic, again, like this is like a resource offered not only during the pandemic, but they have like what they call the employee assistance program.
Yeah.
So that's more kind of like a well-being like program. So so to access this resource, you get to have sessions with a counselor, which is provided through your health insurance, or through an internal counselor in your school district.
Got it.
In my school district, and this is free of charge. They don't charge anything to you, and then you would just have to reach out to contact people in order to they could direct you to the right they could kind of direct you on like how to access that program.
Right.
So yeah.
All right.
And what else? So I had the first the consulting teacher, the
Mm-hmm.
EAP. That's kind of like all I could think of right now.
Okay. Well, if you have any to add later, we can add that in. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about your experience starting teaching during this pandemic. Is it very different from what you learned in your internships? Do you feel like you were prepared in any way to teach during this pandemic? So, yeah, tell us about your experience.
Um, well, I'm not gonna say that it's been like a walk in the park. It's been
Mm-hmm.
really very difficult. Um, yeah, it's been challenging because as a first year teacher, it's I feel like there's so much that I don't know yet, and it's hard because you don't have people to ask questions to. And I mean it's hard because if you're in the schoolhouse, you just walk into that person's office and you get to ask the question. But like if you're virtual, it's like it's hard to get a hold of people sometimes because everybody gets tons of emails every single day, and it's hard to
Yeah.
keep up with those emails. So I mean, communication is very important this virtual learning setting because You just gotta keep everybody in the loop. It's hard, and it's hard to do that because there's only so much time in a day, and you're teaching on top of all these things that you need to do. And again, like there's a lot of technical issues too
Oh man.
during this. So like it could range from microphone not working, the
Hmm.
Wi-Fi is not working, or like there's no internet connection, or Schoology is not working. And like there's always something that happens that, that could kind of that really makes virtual teaching challenging. And it's
Wow.
hard because you don't get to building that relationship too with your students
Right.
is a little tricky because they're only seeing you in the screens.
Right.
And it's much 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 easier to get to know your students when you see them in person. And it's hard. It's just because right now they're all day they're just hearing you talk, and like they don't have one thing that's hard about too what hard about virtual learning too is you don't get these like hands-on experience
Right.
because you're always glued to your screen. And it's challenging, if like all day you're just staring at your screen, and there's only so much that teachers could assign and have students do when you're virtual. I think that's where actually like teachers have to kind of think outside of the box to how to reach your students, how to have them stay engaged. Engagement is very important during this
Yeah.
time because you know um, we can't require students to have their cameras on. So if a student's camera is off, then we have to think of ways to make sure that they're following along, that they're listening and they're participating. And again, sometimes that's kind of hard too, especially when you know it if they have their camera off and you can't really see them. And there are days that teachers would stare into like a bunch of black boxes, and like you don't really have anybody you're talking to. It feels like you're talking to yourself.
Oh my
So
goodness.
that's been challenging too.
Yeah. Wow. So, I know you said students aren't required to keep their video on. Are they required to have a microphone? And what about students who don't have any technology? Has the school been doing anything to provide alternatives, like they do their work on paper and send them in, or you mail their work to their house?
So as far as like our school district, the school district sent out like Chromebooks to the schools to send to the students.
Yeah.
So students will have Chromebooks that they would need, and they could also use their personal device if they have one. But yeah, as far as technology, like the school district is really trying their best to have each student have a Chromebook in
Right.
order to participate in like this virtual learning.
Wow.
And yeah, it's hard because if they don't have a computer, it would be hard to join the instruction that's going on.
Wow. That sounds like a tough job to be doing right now, but I am pretty sure that you found some things to be rewarding throughout this whole process. Is there any glimmer of light or hope throughout this whole process, even though there's a lot of ups and downs and things like that?
Of course, of course. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm like really overwhelmed with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. It's overwhelming, it's hard. You just really have to keep your head up and hope for the best. And yes, to answer your question, I mean, yes, like my students, they're my they're the ones who keeps me going. I mean, that
Yeah.
sounds so cliche, but I mean, all the things that's happening right, I mean, with all the things that come, I mean, okay, with all the responsibilities that I have to do as, as a special ed teacher, like having those interactions with my students, even though I'm talking all day, is, is the thing that I look forward to, like having that interaction with them. And I mean, although again, it's been really tricky, I love having those opportunities to, teach them and to, I mean, that's why I got into teaching
Yeah.
is because I love being with, with kids and just being there for them. And again, challenges are there, but if I mean, I get to see my students every day, and I think really the most fulfilling part of this is when you share their success.
Yeah.
So like when like if let's say day one they struggle with this, and then every day that the work that they put in, the work that you put in would pay off eventually, and you get to see that. That's very, that's very rewarding. That's very fulfilling. Like, oh my gosh, like I was a part of, this success, and I'm so happy that, that you push your students to, to their maximum potential. And yeah, that's been very special to me when that happens. And when you also like see um when you also see like how much they try when you ask them to do something, like their your willingness to work with you, that's very that makes me very happy too, because like I mean, it's not only the teachers who's having difficulties with this virtual learning. If
Right.
anybody who's having difficulties, it's them too. It's
Hmm.
it's we're all at the same boat. Like they're like we are just all trying to figure out all these things, and I like us like teachers just really have to do their best to reach to their students, make sure that that we're trying our best to just be there for our kids, and to just to check in with them too, like how they're doing. I think it's important to like to just know what's going on with your student, not necessarily like just academic, but like check in with them, like, hey, how are you, like how's it going, like do you have, would you like to share anything with me, that changes the ball game too. Like if a student, if you really care about a student, the student would feel that. If that makes sense, like if you're being genuine, they would see that. If you care about them, they would see that. So
Wow. And that's just based on the questions you ask them, right?
yes, and
Yeah.
just like having those conversations with your students too.
Wow. So you're saying that you have some time to interact with them, or you try to make time to do that. Someone asked a question here, do students, with this new learning environment, do the students still get an opportunity to interact with each other? Do they have like a break time where they can stay on the computer and just chat with each other and say, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time, or something like that?
Um, so like based on what I'm seeing when I push into the classroom, so
Yeah.
like they would have the morning meeting. So for that, they get to talk about like how their week went, like how I mean, they just get to talk about anything. So
Right.
not necessarily like interact with, well, I could say that's interacting with one another, because you get to hear about somebody else, and you get to talk to the other students in the room. But as far as them just being in like in a video, because so our platform, we use Google Meet.
Yeah.
So students can't be alone in a Google Meet. Like there has to be like a teacher on there. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but opportunity to interact, like I'm pretty sure they get that opportunity um some point of the day. Like they would um again, like the morning meeting where they just get to greet their teacher, greet the other students, um and just, talk about each other's weekend, or like if a teacher has a question of the day. So like question of the day is like, what um what goal did you set for you for this week? So, and then everybody gets to share their goals, and then somebody could say like, oh yeah, me too, like I have that goal too. So like that kind of interaction, yeah, I always see that in the classrooms that I push into.
That is awesome. Well, I think that we're getting to the end here, and we have just one more question. Someone said, have you always seen yourself as a teacher, or did you want a different career?
um this is like kind of like a yes and no. So yes, I've always wanted to be a teacher. Yes.
Awesome.
But there was one point in so okay, so just to give a little background, I was born and raised in the Philippines. We moved here um I can't remember, six years ago. Yeah. So I already started college in the Philippines. So in the Philippines, my major was in finance. So I wasn't like an education major. But I only chose finance because that was kind of like the more practical choice, because if if I pursued teaching there, it would be very hard to get by with like the teacher salary. I mean, so I just had to make a choice at that point. So yeah, so at some point in my life, like I was kind of I almost chose not to be a teacher, but then when I moved here, and that's when I um had the chance to pursue teaching. And my mom, she used to be a professor, so
Yeah.
that also to kind of influenced like why I wanted to be a teacher. She, like when I was little, she would always take me to her classes, and I was just kind of like observe from the back, like just being in her class. And yeah, I've always been I don't see myself doing anything else other than being in the classroom.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm not gonna lie that I didn't have doubts if this was for me. I mean, I
Right.
did have that doubts. Like I was asking myself, like, do I really fit into this career? Am I good enough to be a teacher? Am I like, can I really do this? Like, especially when I was like really starting to get overwhelmed, I was like really having those doubts. Like
Yeah.
I was like, can I like can I really commit into this career? But again, it's just the students, like the teaching part is what keeps me going.
Yeah.
It's like the teaching part is also challenging. Like don't I mean don't um I'm not saying that it's not hard.
Right.
It's challenging, it's hard, but I enjoy it and I love doing it. And I think mm, that's what's making me stay, and what's gonna make me stay into this career. And as long as I have that joy, as long as I have that drive, that willingness just to be around students with kids, I think I could survive this.
You can survive. You
Yes,
have it in you. That's why.
I hope so. Yeah, I don't want to get to the oh okay, I also want to say this. So when it gets too overwhelming, make sure that you really get supports, and just try to reach out to the people that you trust. Try to like talk it out. It's everybody is having difficulties right now, and it's been hard. But I hope that when it gets to the point of you like thinking of of either quitting or not pursuing teaching anymore, like, just make sure that you've exhausted all the options that you could think of before you actually make that decision of leaving or not pursuing to be a teacher. So all I'm saying is, like, just really try to do your best to just do everything first before you actually quit altogether with like the teaching, because you'll never know what could be in store for you.
Yeah. Don't quit. Keep going, teachers. Someone wrote a really nice note here. They say, we really appreciate all of our teachers before and especially during this time.
Oh, thank you.
I think that is a wonderful note for us to end with here. Again, we have Jasmine. She's a graduate of Towson University. Thank you so much for spending some time on here with us today, Jasmine.
Thank you.
No problem. So before we go, I just wanted to remind everyone that you can go to schoolfinesse.com and you can join a group here. Basically, when you join a group, you look for your major and decided, you go to undecided here, and you join a group, try to connect with some people in your major so you can talk to them, so you can get this kind of valuable information that we just gotten from Jasmine. All sorts of conversations can be taking place in these groups. So join, get to know people, see what's going on, and it'll be a great experience. Again, thank you all for tuning in with us. We hope you all found some valuable resources and information from this. So thank you so much, and have a good day, everyone. Bye.